Hello, everybody. Welcome to our weekly Subspace Developer Sync. I'll go ahead and get us started off with an overview from the week. I think we had some big things last week. We did roll out Gemini 3C to our technical ambassadors. Appears to be successful, so it's been good. We're getting good feedback. Glad we were able to get that out, and glad to be able to get it out as a 3C with all the work Nazar did to make that possible. This week we'll be continuing to roll out with all the ambassadors. And hopefully from there, we'll be moving to the wider community and to a full public rollout. So additional things we had last week, we kicked off the SR Labs protocol implementation audit. So that has now officially started. And then, my week was focused on spending a few days with Jeremiah at ETH Denver. Had a great time, getting to hang out with Jeremiah and getting to talk to lots of projects, hear what they're doing, how we might be able to do things with some of them in the future. It was all around a good time to kind of see what's happening out in the world, come up to breathe a little bit. This week, I've got a lot of catching up to do. So if anybody is waiting on responses from me, I've got a lot of reminders set in my Slack and things to go back to in Notion to make comments on. So I apologize for being slow there. As always, going to continue progress on the engineering handbook. And as always, I welcome other contributions. They're still waiting on some learning Substrate and learning Subspace. So anybody gets excited to help out there, I'd greatly appreciate it. Another thing I'll be focused on this week is working on some of the details of our hiring process, making more structured interviews, trying to figure out how to scale that process. So, and major failure of the week is I did not get a joke. So I know like anybody tuning in just for those jokes is going to be horribly disappointed. If anybody has one off the top of their head, feel free to jump in. Not the comedian crowd. So, all right. I guess with that, we'll move into Nazar's updates.
Hello, guys. The big updates from last week, there was a substrate upgrade. There were quite a few changes that failed to compile in our case, and thanks to Chain for fixing some of the tests that have changed behavior on Windows, and Substrate didn't care, but they suggested how we can work around that. There was a re-implementation of the incremental record commitments in the archiving process. We basically now hash things as we add things to the buffer. During the archiving process, it's not super helpful, but it will be helpful once we change that hashing to actual commitments with KZG, which is more expensive, so we will be able to amortize it over time. And there was initial erasure coding support introduced in the draft pull request with Rust KZG library. There were a few challenges. First of all, I wasn't able to install dependencies because they were using young dependencies that were really old. I had to fix that. Then it didn't compile. I had to fix that. Then it didn't compile for the WASM. I had to fix that. And then I found that even though it compiles for WASM, it's not actually NoSTD compatible. So I had to dig even deeper into BLST library from Supranational and introduce NoSTD support there. It's still under review, but generally it kind of works. That's why pull request is still in draft, but we can move from there. And I also started working on Chia proof of space. Not quite happy with the progress and what I see in the existing implementations, but that will be the main focus for me this week.
Great. That was a lot. Shamil, how are things coming with you?
Last week, I made several iterations with our long-lasting PR for block importing and pieces validation. There were some issues in the main branch. We fixed that, and I hope that we finally will merge it into the main. Also, I created a draft PR for the segment reconstruction that allows to reconstruct missing pieces in case that it's missing in the our cache layer or archival storage layer as well. Today, I just posted the final PR, I hope. This additional feature actually embedded this history construction in the farmer for plotting process. And last week, I also started custom piece announcement implementation. We're trying to experiment with our own implementation of that operation instead of Kademlia's operation. That's it. And this week, I will probably focus on the finishing of those PRs and probably start moving into the performance analysis of the network. That's it.
All right, great. Rahul.
Yeah. So last week, went back and updated the design doc of the block relay proposal based on feedback from Jeremiah and others. Now we are in a state where everyone has approved the design and the roadmap. I started working on that last week, and the benchmarking is pretty much done. I have the initial numbers in, which I published yesterday. Please take a look and let me know. I'm going to do some more digging today. I want to get a better split up of where the time is going, because I see, I can't quite explain some things I'm seeing there. Like, it doesn't scale linearly. If you double the block size, the time also doesn't scale linearly with that. So I'm going to get better understanding today. And once that is done, I'm going to resume my change to create the first big step in creating the new block relay block download path and start testing it this week. And that is my main goal for this week. And I'm also creating all the tickets based on what we agreed upon in the proposal document. That was the main thing. Unfortunately, I could not spend much time on the Chia library last week because I was kind of busy with the block relay design and everything. So this week, hopefully, I can spend more time with and Nazar and Daria. Please let me know if you need something from me. That's it for me.
All right. Great to see progress on that, by the way, and just finally getting started, Rahul. So excited to see how this progresses. All right, let's move into domains. Lu Chang, how are things coming?
Yeah, last week, as mentioned by Nazar, like fixed some Windows like failure encountered in the Substrate upgrades. And then with the new version of Substrate, I can replace the primary block notification stream using the new block imported stream provided by the natural Substrate client. So the PR is still on the review. In addition, I also finalized the PR of rejecting the bundles created on the primary chain folks. But it unfortunately has leftover, which is it only works for the system domains bundles at this moment. For the co-domains bundles, we cannot prevent them from being included in the primary chain block. We'll revisit in the future. So regarding this week, when I was thinking about the exact rewards, and then I realized that we could probably first implement the farmer rewards, which is basically the rewards domain. So I plan to work on the rewards domain this week. We had some early work, the reverse domain doc, done in the past. So I'll continue from there. Yeah, my updates.
All right. Ning.
Hi guys. For us, we are mostly working on the domain testing frameworks. I had some discussion with Ruchen on the design on the improvement plans, and we had some concerns on that. And I create a check-in issue based on the implementation plans. And the rest of the time, mostly working on implement a prototype of the frameworks, and it's mostly done in a developer branch in the monolith called domain testing, and most of the tests at the tracking issue are done in this branch. And I start using this framework in some existing tests, and the main focus of next week is like still working on the domain testing to push the chain on the prototypes to be merged into the main branch. That would be my update.
If anybody's interested in kind of more details on that testing framework, which is pretty cool, Ning's been working on, watch the domain sync. We spent quite a bit of time kind of digging into that. So, Ved.
Hey everyone. Last week, major focus was finishing up the changes, messenger changes that we've discussed. The last PR landed yesterday. That should really finish up all the changes that went into the messenger verification. This week, try and get that deployed to DevNet. No, we are ready to do a snapshot on domains as well. We'll check with Nazar and Shamil of the meeting if we can do a snapshot as well and deploy to DevNet and test out some things there. There are also some infra-level document changes that I have to do for Jeremy. We're gonna spend some time on that this week, and also maybe pitch in to those learn Substrate and Subspace documents as well while I have some time there. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Great. Parth.
Yeah. So from my side, last week the PR's major feedback got resolved. PR for the plant palette. There are some minor issues remain, which I'll be resolving either tonight or by tomorrow. Apart from that, I opened a draft runtime PR that integrates the palette into the runtime for the Ethereum core domain. I have started working on a CLI integration as well as more testing from security standpoint. This week's primary goal would be to have both PR merged and open another PR for CLI integration with domain as well as some test cases.
Great. It's good seeing progress there as well. So it looks like that PR was about ready last I checked. So good work, Parth. All right, well, let's shift to product. Stefano.
Yeah, so I think that the upcoming launch of Gemini 3 gave a boost to some of the activities on the Explorer side. And I was working on how to streamline better the process of defining the backlog and introducing a new artifact, which is the initiatives. So I will try to, so I was trying to make it closer, the distance between, management and high-level initiatives and what is happening in the code. This is something that is going on pretty well, and it will also be reflected this week into a new format, which is the lab template. In parallel to that, we have a product readiness list. So we want to make sure that when there is a protocol change, the product is following. So we were working in the last 2 weeks on that, and I think that we are at a good point now to involve the external providers, Subscan and Subwallet. And then I will let the others introduce more of the details. What I'm not happy with is that I would like to have the PRD process already in place, but we are still changing some details, trying to adapt for an additional speed of development. So I I count to finish this week and to start as soon as possible the meetings with some of the designers and developers to essentially clear out the list of features and product work.
Serge, how are things coming?
Hi, everyone. So on the status page, we're basically done for now. We have it's available on the subdomain status subspace network. And I also removed some of the redundant Gemini 2 RPC endpoints. On the block explorer, so I found some bugs on the account page, and I will probably address those during this week. I also added block outer to the block entity, currently only on the backend. And I have updated end-to-end tests so we can use like simpler setup for local DevNet and submitted PR for that. I was doing some investigation on how can we display rewards per user, and already started some implementation. Also, I'm planning to finish it during this week. And there were some minor UI adjustments. For example, we decided to remove tabs to switch between domains because we don't have domains yet on the block explorer at least. And also we removed some like best block labels, best block chain stat component because currently Subsquid doesn't process best blocks, only finalized. And yeah, this week, as I mentioned, I'm going to work on the account page and rewards per user. And also I will do some investigation on the Squid deployment because currently every time we add a new feature for the Squid, we need to re-index the whole chain and it takes some time. So what I already discussed with Jeremy is we can start like another Squid in parallel, and once they are synced, we can swap to the newer version. Yeah, that's all on my side.
All right, Natasha.
Hello, everyone. In my case, last week, I was working with the domain-specific URL for the Block Explorer and made the PR for that. Also completed the work on adding unit tests for the missing parts on the blockchain, on the Block Explorer. So also make the PR for that and work on other like minor issues. Right now, for this week, I'm gonna be focused on solving one comment that Serge mentioned for the URL specific domain is to remember which network the user selected. So when he comes back, he's in the last network he selected. I plan to finish that today and also focus on one issue that Serge created that are the stale queries. For like if you leave the tab open from the Block Explorer for like two hours or more, the queries get stale and then it brings an error. So I will work this week on solving that, and yeah, any other issues we might found.
All right, Yvonne, how's the SDK?
Yeah, hi guys. So last week I focused on the issue which was related to like graceful shutdown of both Farmer and Node on the SDK side. Actually fixed that and regression test for that, but unfortunately it doesn't pass in CI. So I'm still working on that. Also started working on the like fetching events from the substrate. So as for this week, I will try to finalize those two and blend it into SDK, so it will be accessible to Ozgen. That's it on my end.
Ozgen.
Hello. We have a bunch of updates for CLI. The most important one is previously we had for each new farm block, we were printing a new line, and that was showing total count of farm blocks. And now, since I was testing CLI, I saw that 16,000 lines popped up in the terminal screen, and I had to scroll up to see if everything was all right. I believe users would do the same for checking if plotting is finished or syncing is finished. And that's why I changed the line to updating the value. So instead of printing a new line each time a new farm block, it just updates the count of the farm blocks in the same line, so we don't add a new line. This was a big improvement for the user experience, in my opinion. Aside from that, we released new versions of CLI. Justin, thanks, by the way, found a bug right away, and I updated the release. And added executor flag as recommended by Nazar. Now that users won't be confused by the question on the init step about you want to be executor or not, so we can provide that with a flag instead. Yvonne faced a problem with macOS in CLI. This was a new one. It was due to the operating system being not up to date, out of date. And I believe this is okay because macOS is not backwards compatible as Windows. So I think it's good to go. It was 10.13 for E1s, and currently it's probably 12 or 13, I believe, the OS version. And inspected the farming docs, gathered some notes in the Notion. So Stefano and Justin, we will take a look, and if needed, we will have a meeting about it. And lastly, updated the Fourier transform article so that some of the confusing stuff is now more readable and understandable, and updated some images to that so that Alexander can work on making these images more professional. And I believe that's all.
All right. We switch over to research. Daria.
Hey. Yeah, didn't get much done today exactly because my baby's a little sick. But last week I was working on the updating for publication the article that was written by Jeremiah a while ago, the Hitchhiker's Guide to Subspace Episode 1, which is the guide to polynomial commitment schemes, KZG, Reed-Solomon, all of that. I have updated it in terms of there were some claims that like Subspace will do this and that based on our previous version of consensus. So I have updated those. I have added a couple more sections to make the text more clear and explain things that we actually ended up using, like fast Fouriers and roots of unity. And I have made a suggestion to make it a little shorter. This week I will be continuing working on the next blog, which I think is about the new consensus based on my presentation and the previous notes. And I was answering a lot of Nazar's questions, and I will continue to do so up to my best ability about the implementation of new consensus.
All right. Lastly, we got Justin. How are things coming? Community.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So last week, I was focused on some event preparation for an event that we'll be hosting here coming up. Obviously, updating the documentation to reflect the latest version of Gemini 3 for the community. I also spent a pretty decent amount of time doing bug reports and supporting the community for Gemini 3. As I was going to mention, we found one in CLI pretty early on, and a couple other things that have already been reported up. Also finished up the product brief for the Discord and Node integration that we've been working on, and had a chance to meet up with Stefano and got his feedback on that. We'll be hoping to meet up this week and continue that effort. I also synced up with Stefano regarding community members building from source, and we touched base on that and moving forward on finishing up those initiatives. As far as this week's goals, obviously continuing to support Gemini 3 as that continues to make progress. I'm finalizing the event preparation, and obviously we'll be hosting the event. We're aiming for this Friday. Anyone in the community, look out for the announcements coming here soon. And then I'll be also meeting with Stefano and Fragique to start the draft of the product specification for the Node and Discord integration. So hopefully we can start getting some of the technical details nailed down for that. And obviously helping execute Gemini 3 updates within the community as they come out from the developers this week as well. And we'll also be working to make progress on our user funnels that I've been working with Fragique on. No blockers on my end at this time, but happy to help. And I do have some messages that I'll be following up on from last week that I got a little bit behind on. So I do apologize in advance for anyone who's looking out for my messages there.
All right, thank you, Justin. Well, unless I missed anybody, I believe we got through everyone here. So we will see you all back in a week. Thank you.